the end of my tolerance. So let's talk French destroyers. Um, Actually, we're going to talk destroyers in general tonight. We're not really home in on any single destroyer, but there is a specific type of play that is kind of inherent when you're talking about destroyers this season, and it's almost entirely gunboat destroyer play. While we see some hybrids and some utility ships, the Loyang comes to mind, and that gets a significant amount of play. The destroyers that we see most of are things like Cossack, which is a good utility boat. We see a good bit of Orkan, which is another good utility boat. It has radar. And then we see a lot of French destroyers, which are pure gunboat. So whether you're thinking about a utility ship or a purist gunboat ship, what we're seeing DDs being brought for mostly this season is their guns. Now, less so torpedoes. And that's actually really good for a lot of very happy destroyer players because the the gunboat destroyer play is usually a little bit more intriguing, at least at higher skill levels, than the torpedo boat. And that's for two main reasons. And I will cover like two basic scenarios that we're seeing a lot of. Like this is why you would bring a French DD or utility DD, um, and then I'll cover a couple of those, and then I'll turn it over to Small, who actually knows what he's talking about. I don't play destroyers, but Small does. So once we kind of cover these basic ideas here a little bit, then we can dive in a little deeper. So I get a stream up, and this is a basic map. This is Loop. It's one of the clan battles maps this season. And when you're talking about a good gunboat destroyer, there's really one place on this map for red team that you'd really want to put him. And that's in a position where you can leverage his above average guns and um, kind of cover the below average concealment that it has. So what you would probably be doing if you have a French destroyer and a utility destroyer is you'd have them playing together on a cap. In this case, like a Cossack in cap usually works pretty well because it's got hydro, and it's got some single launch torp, so it can kind of peek out the sides and it can control this cap zone very well. If this enemy destroyer wants to come in and contest it, um, which it kind of is going to have to do at some point in this game, unless they're just going to give the red team this cap. The other destroyer is going to have to get in there and do something, even just keep the cap, neutral. And anywhere in this cap zone, he's pretty much going to be picked up by hydro. And so, if he's here and the hydro is going, um, if you're not running a French destroyer, or if you're running it, kind of in the wrong spots, then it's not really going to do much. But if you get it in a position where it can stay undetected, but close enough to this cap here, where it can open up relatively safely on the destroyer that's lit by somebody else, it can be an amazing asset to be able to just control caps because there's really nothing that the enemy can do to detect this guy out here, unless this is like a Chapiev with radar. That's like the only thing that could actually detect this guy. And as soon as he starts shooting, there's really nobody in a position to open up significant counterfire. I mean, maybe you have a Baltimore or something on this island, but at this range, that's an easy dodge. So you can get free damage and either drive this DD off or kill him just right there with that type of play. If you drive him off, then you're still controlling the cap, and it's going to force them to do some unwise things, like to put this battleship up there. Um, in which case he's going to get torped. That's just not going to work. A lot of times they try to control the angles to get this guy out. So they pop radar. They got the battleship moving around. They're trying to make a play. So you have to definitely watch how you play, and so that you don't get outmaneuvered. Something like this when you're playing in cap as a destroyer. But if you're watching for this type of thing and you just kind of quietly exit, as soon as this cruiser moves up, this radar's off, cool down. It's like, okay, we've controlled this cap long enough. These guys are starting to get themselves exposed. And so with this cruiser moving up, he should probably take a bunch of bow pens from that battleship and come under heavy fire from this cruiser. And he's down to half before he ever reaches the island. Again, unopposed damage. And you wouldn't really be able to get that unless you had this guy in cap, and this guy in cap isn't able to stay there unless he has gunfire over support. So that's kind of the reasons why you'd bring something that's a little heavier of a gunboat. Now, a Japanese gunboat like a Hikaru could probably do this. Wait, it's not a Hikaru.
What?
Uh, uh,
Easier?
Yeah, it's a
Akazuki.
Akazuki. Thank you. The Akazuki could probably do this as well, but its gunpowder it's just a little bit less snappy than the French, and it does not have the same amount of speed. So it wouldn't be able to do some of the other common strategies that we would need done. On this map, it could definitely be sort of either or. If you wanted to bring an Akazuki or if you wanted to bring a French, boat, either one is okay. The
Is it an
Terrible, the
appropriate
Fantastique.
area for Ragnar?
Um, Tier 10, everything shifts a little bit, and this type of strategy would be a little bit less viable. Mostly because the Russian cruiser on the flank usually is a lot more effective, and you start running into a lot of small ones. But you can still take the general principle of it, and the fact that it's not up up here playing island huggy games because it doesn't have the consumables for that, right? But it's usually kind of playing ambush stuff. So you're back here, and you're just, you're raining on folks and you're staying out of the way and long enough range from cruisers that they can't just really smack you with damage. And then here, you're just kind of moving back and forth and, moving around just a little bit whenever you're detected so that nobody's really going to land a smack on you. And so long as you're doing that, then this is a very difficult position to get that French destroyer out of. Not only is it providing that cap control, but it's also going to make it very difficult for this cruiser to make anything happen over here. He's just going to get torped, right? And if he doesn't get torped, he's hugging this island real close, and then he gets blown up by the other cruiser and probably the battleship. So you lack really any good options to deal with this. There's going to have to be some sort of green team push coming here in order to deal with these destroyer positionings. The downside on this, though, of course, is that if the green team push comes and it's executed pretty well, or they get lucky, Torps are on cooldown, they don't see the battleship coming up until he's like right there, and then it's like, oh no, I got to do something, and then you lose a destroyer for like nothing, and the battleship dodges his Torps, and you can have a chain of kind of luck go against you here pretty quickly, unless you're carefully watching the enemy team's movements, acting appropriately. Getting this guy out of dodge as soon as these ships start coming in, and landing effective torps, on these guys, and getting these French torps in action. That's really key. This battleship starts moving up. Yeah, it might actually be time to get this French destroyer over here. Just to counter that battleship movement. And as soon as he starts presenting a bit of an angle or starts rounding this corner or whatever he's trying to do, just two racks of torps and you just stealth torp him. Um, he's not gonna. I mean, even if he eats just like two or three torps, that's enough. That's a massive advantage that you got again for free. So if you can play this type of, you know, fast mobility, watching cooldowns on enemy radar, positions on enemy boats, looking for opportunities, controlling caps, working with your destroyer, you could be incredibly effective in a French destroyer or Japanese destroyer in this case, something with heavy guns and moderate torps. The other position that you can find yourself in a French destroyer, and this is something that's a little more unique to the French, is something like this. And this is Crash Zone Alpha. This is another clan battle map this season. But this is where you're tag teaming with as part of a larger fleet, and you're enforcing kills. So what this encounter usually would be like is initially both teams are going to cautiously approach this cap, and you're not really sure if you're outnumbered by the enemy. Um, if you bring three ships, then you could be fairly confident that the enemy won't outnumber you. At least they might match you, but probably they won't, bring three. They'll probably just bring one or two. And if you have a French destroyer here, in our situation in 33, usually what we do is like an Orkan in the lead with the radar, French DD right behind him, and then something like an Amalfi a little further behind. Amalfi mostly because it's super fast, 38 knots. Keep up with
Quick
these guys.
question.
Yeah.
So whenever there's a French destroyer as part of the team comp, then 4-2 splits kind of go out the window, right? You need a 3-3.
No, no, no. The previous example I gave is a great example where we're doing a 4-2 loop. So this would be like a Cossack and Fantastique or Turbo, French CD. And you're doing a 4-2. In 33, this would be something like the Cossack and the Terrible, and then we've got on the off flank, this is like Amalfi and Orkan. We use Amalfi Orkan combos a lot, and it's working pretty well. Just because the Orkan can keep a destroyer, spot is, as soon as he's here, he can either,
Well, let
surface
me
spot him if
rephrase
he has
it.
better.
So,
Yeah.
so the French DD would need to be on the 4 side, right? That's part of the four
Not
team
every
comp.
map. Um, it's really it's really judged by the amount of island cover and whether you can afford to get something. Um, there's a lot of innovative strategies that you can actually do with a French destroyer. Like if you were going to say take this battleship out of the picture and have him join on the other side, this is really effective. Because you could play the exact same game here, just knowing that you're going to kite away and being a presence out here that the enemy just cannot kill. Um, and then your real action takes place over here on the east. And this is where you muscle out your two caps. And if they leave to come and um, prevent you from doing this stuff, then you're still heavily contesting on the west. So that's viable. I'm not sure which would seem better to you guys, and we could kind of talk about that type of nuance maybe in battle color training or something. But um,
Well, it's also gonna that's one of those things that's gonna be greatly dependent on the comp you're going against. The ships on the other side are gonna greatly determine are gonna have an impact on which of those two strategies you pick.
to some degree, especially if I see a really well,
'Cause the thing I'm trying to just understand, because I'm
yeah.
an idiot and I'm new, is what type of support could or should a French DD get in a comp
Usually,
like that?
a utility destroyer is its best friend, and you can see it here with the Costigan cap using Hydro to spot this enemy DD. That's really key. Getting that spotting is something that the French DD really can't do too well. So if there's D out there that can do it, great. Something like a Baltimore could also work with radaring up here, and getting that spotting, but it's honestly a little bit less reliable because there's long downtimes where there's just gaps in the Balti radar coverage.
So then,
So
like,
something
in the situation of the team only has two DDs, one of them being the Frenchie, you want to typically pair the DDs up on one cap. Is that right?
um if you're running
Like for optimal.
if you're running two DDs, I probably wouldn't run French at all. Just that's usually say, and you can see how hard it is to position yourself, in this Fantastique or whatever it is, this French destroyer, and the amount of team support you need for this to be effective. If those things aren't in place, then you're in real trouble. If you're running only two destroyers, then this flank over here is just going to get picked on. They can have one cruiser, two cruisers. It really doesn't matter, and you're just going to get picked on over here.
Or
So
the other scenario would be like a less experienced team, then you probably don't want to run a French team.
exactly. Yeah. This is a very high skill move, and we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll break it down and what's involved. And so you can kind of see how it's done and how it's countered. And if you have people that are passionate about learning French Destroyer, then yeah, go ahead and try. But don't be afraid to recognize if it's not working. Common things if it's not working is this French Destroyer, maybe moving out too far and getting himself killed, or taking a position behind the island and never really doing anything, or just kind of shooting his guns out here. And he's like, I'm getting hits. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, yeah, but you're not getting hits on the important target, which is this destroyer. This guy dies to torps. That's what needs to happen. And so there's a lot of nuance and variability on something like this. It's a little more straightforward with what we were looking at Crash Zone Alpha. Additionally, a really strong push over here where you're going to want to go and you're going to want to control this cap. But even more than that, you're going to want to kill these boats uh, and do it quickly because your other team here, your other flank, I should say, is outnumbered. Because you've got three ships in the north, you only have three available to the south, and the enemy team down here is probably going to have four. So your southern flank is probably not going to be able to deal with this very well at all. They need support and they need it very quickly. So when you're doing that, what we usually do is, again, we have the Amalfi Orkan pair, and in this case, we're just going to rotate that French destroyer over from the flank that he normally works on over to the contested cap on this map. And that's done mostly because there's nowhere to run. If you're contesting this cap, you're going to be doing it from here because if you're in these islands, um, you're basically just dead or getting pushed back to the center of the map. There's nowhere to run to really. So if you if you push up, say maybe your Orkin into surface detection range of the enemy destroyer, and then as soon as he turns off or smokes or whatever, then you can use that radar. If the other destroyer outspots you, that can be a little bit trouble, but that's not usually too bad because as soon as the Orkin gets detected, then he pops a radar and you can see this. Alternatively, you can actually do much the same thing with your Amalfi back here or whatever cruiser you got, because his detection circle is going to be much larger. And so whenever he gets detected, if he has radiolocation, he can pinpoint exactly where that enemy destroyer is precisely because he's at the edge of the detection circle and right in the center of the radiolocation cone. And that gives everybody else, the two DDs, the confidence to say, okay, we can take that fight, or maybe we can. And that's usually based on where this cruiser is. If they just they're both sitting right there, then yeah, you're going to want to be a little careful there, especially if the cruiser has radar or something. But more than likely, it's going to be like an Otago, something on this flank, or on a something open water that can kite. And this destroyer kill here is absolutely critical. In fact, they both are. But getting both of these ships down must happen efficiently. So a French destroyer here absolutely ensures that this goes from a skirmish to a win if played properly. Because what this guy does is as soon as this target gets lit up, as soon as this destroyer becomes visible, it's just go, baby. And usually he starts off with a very direct angle, full speed, speed boost, go, and he'll probably pass the Orkan who stops. He doesn't really want to get detected, he might be blurring the radar, but he's keeping distance about the same. And the French destroyer is going to keep roughly the same line, not to spook the radiolocation. And then as soon as he gets, he's going guns hot as much as possible, but he's trying to close the distance. This destroyer, if he knows what's good for him, is probably going to turn and run, but he's not as fast. With the Amalfi, which is also super fast, you're keeping pace pretty well at about 40 knots. And this push here, so long as you keep that speed up, they cannot get away. And you have more gun power and hit points than they do. And so one by one, these ships will die. You basically just full speed right at them, guns blazing, little wiggle woggles back and forth to dodge dodging coming fire. The Amalfi can actually smoke up and still go full speed and just remain undetected if he starts getting seriously focused, but that's kind of rare. So if you get in this, the Orkan's the only one that has a little bit more of a tougher job because he has not quite the hit points of dodginess, so he's got to only open up when it's you know looks pretty good. It's kind of a tougher skill, but usually if both of these ships are engaging, like say the French DD, then at that point, Frenchie starts going a little more evasive, juking a bit, maybe opening the distance just a little bit more. And the Orkan, which has been moving up, just opens up from a different angle. So they got to rotate their guns, they got to focus on a new target, and that gives our French destroyer a little bit more space. And then there's the Amalfi. You're gonna win this. You're just gonna win it. But you have to keep that speed up, and you have to make sure you stick to these guys. If you take the cap and you're like, okay, we're in control of the cap, and I see we're in control of this other cap down here, so that makes two caps. Don't chase. Well, no. If you brought a French destroyer up here, it's the chase boat. It's exactly what it's there for because it's faster than everything else, and you need to stick to the enemies and make them dead. That doesn't mean just running full speed at them and firing until you die as a French DD. You can take critical amounts of damage doing that. You got to kind of juke it off, and dodge incoming fire, but also balance the aggro between all three ships ideally, but at least between the two destroyers. If you're doing
So,
that, you're going to be okay.
quick question. We in the lower ones, we're seeing a lot of single DD sets, which I know is far from the best, um, as far as strategy go. But teams are putting double cruiser on their single side. They're weak. They're basically their kiting side. Does that
Mhm.
change anything you're doing here, or are you still just
Um,
trying to blitz the heck out of them?
it really kind of depends on what they're how much pressure they're putting on the South. But if this double cruiser, then you could leave all these three ships out skirmishing here and they will win. But your strength is really more in cap control and contest. Because if those cruisers have to commit far enough to come in and contest this cap, then that's going to probably result in some dead cruisers if you plan that engagement right. So maybe pulling your French destroyer off that flank at that point, as soon as you detect the destroyer or you see two cruisers up here and there's no other radiolocation pings or whatever it is, pulling them off to mid and just getting that the torp salvo off on this battleship, or sinking this cruiser or something like that, or helping to kill this destroyer. That might be more valuable at that point, because if you're two ships on the contest, you don't have to worry about them too much if they don't have a destroyer, because you they're never going to spot you. I mean, okay, especially with an Amalfi. If it was a Mines or something or an Otago gets a heal, so maybe that could work. But you can probably still kind of keep them off. You just have to watch the damage that you take. That would look a little bit more like this at that point, with your cruiser staying safe and your DD staying in cap control up here. And so their cruisers, what are they going to do if they start running up on your destroyer? The destroyer is just going to, keep him spotted and fall back and throw torps at him, and he's just constantly taking sap. So he's never going to be able to see this cruiser. eh, you can't really do that. I mean, unless you're playing super aggressive, and if you're super aggressive and these cruisers just come charging in, then your French boy is probably not even all that gone. He's probably only right about here at that point. So you just say, hey, turn around. Can you torp those cruisers? And so he
So
turns around, torps the cruiser. Yeah.
you wanna move your Frenchie to midfield and have him use his speed to cover basically both sides, for lack of a better term, especially on the smaller maps where it takes him like
He's
10 seconds.
he's gonna have to commit. The key thing is going to be getting a torp salvo off. I mean, you can kind of gun down ships over time, but the French destroyer really has two main advantages, and the fact that it can really assist in ensuring a destroyer is dead, that it cannot get away, and then the torp salvo. The torp salvo catches a lot of ships off guard because it launches a lot of pretty decent torps with a good spread, and it can do it while stealth. So if it's out there just kind of shooting at cruisers, we haven't had a lot of luck at that, you know, or even like lighting fires on battleships. Yeah, it'll get some fires, but it doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage. So you need to be taking those high value targets off the field, which would
So
be torp
kill
strikes.
kill the DDs and then use your torps to
Yeah,
best advantage.
yeah, and that's pretty subjective advice. There's probably always going to be a situation where
Yeah,
no, you want to, but
that's
in general,
it sounds like the Frenchies are the most nuanced ship we're gonna see in this clan battle season.
yeah, and there's a lot of times that 33 we just don't run one because we don't have like the three really good French destroyer pilots. We've got like three or four in 33, and sometimes we don't have them online, and so or they don't feel like it, so we just don't run it. But if you get somebody that's on the ball, then you can pull some shenanigans with this type. Just bear in mind that it usually works best paired with a utility destroyer. So if you have like a Cossack or an Orkan, or a Loyang, with good like hydro smoke, uh, something like that, radar, then that'll be a good pairing for your French DD because it gives him the intelligence that he needs to know what the other guy's doing. Like for example, if there was a destroyer up here and your French guy's playing around the middle, he gets radared up, he starts turning off, pulling away, dead DD. And there's no counterplay. There's nothing that can prevent that from happening. Destroyer pilots kind of know how this feels. It's a very sinking feeling to say, "Oh no, he's right there," and you can't do anything. You just kind of have to maybe hope that you'll get him with a torp. But that's about all the options you have. So it's all about ambush tactics with French destroyers, whether that's at long range and then closing in and sticking with an enemy team and making sure they die, or playing with your concealment. Like if you were going to play a French destroyer here, playing him on these angles is pretty potent, but it doesn't. I mean, for the torpedo threat, right? But it doesn't really leave you a lot of options for engaging this destroyer. So a lot of times, we kind of see him playing a little bit more back here or around here, and the goal is to trap this destroyer into hydro or radar, and flush him out, smoke him out, push him back, kill him, something like. And this is perfectly okay. It's just a very static position. If you've got your French destroyer out here, there's no way that you're going to be able to get him cross field over here. And so he can really only do that one job. It's fine, guess. It's just maybe not quite as good as ensuring 2 kills up north. Okay, so I ran over a little bit, but let me turn it over to Schmoll here for a little bit of fine tuning. Schmoll, what advice do you have for newer people starting out with maybe a French destroyer line?
Well, for this season, uh, honestly, the first destroyer line you should go for. 100% the best one. no doubt in my mind, if you're trying to get to tier 10, is the British. The Daring is a beast of a DD. It is great in randoms, and honestly, it's probably one of the better ones for CBs at that level. The Lightning for this season has been great. We have people who play it every night, and if that's the route you want to go and you want to try DDs, I highly recommend the British ones. I'm no DD expert by any means, but that was my first line, and it's because it's very forgiving and it has a heal. The guns are great, and the torps can get shit done. So that's what I would go with if you're trying to get into DDs. They're a little bit of a pain to play right now because of the way everything is set up. But either that line or even maybe the Pan European. The Holland is another solid choice at tier 10. The grind to it is a little rough, but the reward is a really, really solid DD that plays a little bit different, and you have to learn the nuances of how to play a DD effectively because you don't have a smoke. And then there are my specialty with destroyers. I love French destroyers. They are one of the reasons I stuck with the game when they came out. I played the shit out of the Kleber. I play the Marceau like crazy. I played a Le Fantastique for us in 33 whenever I decide to. Uh, it's a very nuanced thing. I play these DDs a little differently than the way you probably see them in randoms. Um, in randoms, for the most part, you have. Can everybody see my screen
Yeah.
effectively?
Although maybe control mouse wheel up, it'll zoom in a little more. It zooms in on cursor, so
So in randoms, for the most part, you'll see a French DD. They're usually somewhere out here just kind of spamming HE. Well, this map is kind of perfect because Roger was explaining earlier. Where I am in French DD is a lot different. For the most part, you would think they'd be like maybe here or here or here out here. I'm right here. So I consider a French destroyer kind of like the Predator. Um, it's got weapons that other DDs just simply don't have. And the most important thing is its hull allows for extra saturation, and it does not take as much damage as the rest of destroyer hulls in the game. That's its kind of unique thing about every French destroyer. They all can soak up a lot more damage than what the other ones can. So what I like to do with these is run them very concealment heavy, all the way as low as you can get. With the Le Fantastique, you can get down to 6'4". That is tremendous for a French destroyer because the Kleber is like 7'1"
yeah, it's a little bit longer.
at tier 10.
The
It's
Marceau's not much better.
yeah, the Marceau I think is like 7 or something like that. Or I think Kleber is 7'8" and Marceau's, but you get my point.
7'4", yeah.
They're horrendous for concealment. These aren't. 6'4" can be competitive for actually taking caps. It's not great because you have boats like Cossack that are 5'5", but I can still take caps. And the most important thing is I can speed boost into caps. Every single time that I'm in a French destroyer, Rigel can detest this. I will point out, hey, like, Rigel, I can fly into that cap and get it. It's an advantage that you can get, but you have to know what you're doing once you get in there. Pop your speed boost, you smack yourself into this island. I mean, you literally want to smack yourself and then start backing up. And the first thing that I like to do once I'm in this area is you always want to have somebody backing you up in either a very concealment heavy destroyer, a Cossack, Lightning, Low Yang. A German DD is pretty nice for its hydro for this type of stuff. It's because you can control this cap really easily with hydro. It's not a humongous cap, and if you get a DD in here at the end, there's a good chance they can see where the other DD is on the other side. Now, I use torps for French DDs as a deterrent. I don't use them as an active attacking tool. They're going to get you killed 9 times out of 10 if you think like, "Oh, I can go bum rush that battleship." No, don't do that. what you want to do is you want to kite away and send torps when something's coming at you, or use them to deter an enemy from coming. The Le Fantastique's kind of a little different than the Colbert because the Colbert has 2 racks on each side. You have generally 2 racks on each side and then 1 on the other once you blow the 2 on one side. So you get effective ability to kind of just make sure nothing comes around these corners right here. Let's see if I can. So these are your biggest problems in this. And the main problem is, for the most part, you're going to get something like typically a cruiser there, and then like a cruiser there, and then maybe you get another DD out here. So you become really stuck in. But with the French, the great thing is you can throttle back and forth with these things, and it's very hard to hit. Knowing how to use your island as cover and how to, what's the best way to put it? It's like creating an image constantly where the island is always in front of you, but it's not. You just want it in front of the ship that you're shooting at. So then he can't spot you. Learning that technique, it takes a very long time to get good at it. I am not a professional at it. I'm not the best at it. I've seen there are people like in '07 that are crazy at it. But learning how to do that with my play style is very crucial because then you don't get spotted. And you can sit there and farm damage all you want.
If you can find a relatively stationary target and
Yeah.
just micromanage your position from the island and have an angle such that all your gun turrets manage to clear the edge of the island, but that's due to the elevation of the shells, right? So
Yes.
the enemy can't see your ship to return fire. Then all you really have to watch for is like the cooldowns of enemy radar or potentially hydro, and you'll just never be spotted back there, and you just get again free damage. That's what you're looking for in this type of boat. It's just free damage on the more valuable targets if you can, like that destroyer or that cruiser on the flank.
So the thing about the different way that I kind of play French DDs is when I take one into CBs, my goal is one, I want to get the cap advantage right away. That's what I'm there for. I can get to the cap faster than any other ship in the game, besides maybe another French DD. And if you know what you're doing, you can even beat that DD to other French DD to it. This map is one of my favorite ones this season, actually, for these things because of this little area right up here and right back here. That is a free capping point on a French. Doesn't matter what side you spawn in, you will get there if you speed boost right off the bat and you get behind there. They cannot hit you, and you can stay in cap and capture it without any relative danger besides something like up here type area or down here. You don't have to worry about anything in this general area. They won't be able, well, that's a shit color. They won't be able to hit you down here, and these guys down here won't be able to hit you. They usually put like a BB or a cruiser here. They can't hit you up here. It's a very strong position. You just have to know what you're doing because it's not a lot of room to stay in the cap and to stay undercover. If you decide that you want to start doing that type of stuff or that type of play and play French, I highly recommend going into a training room and learning these spots on this map. This map is very, very advantageous for my play style because there's a lot of island cover. Islands are my best friend in my play style because I want you to know I'm there, but I don't want you to know where I'm going to pop out at. And using torps to effectively kind of guide ships where you want them to go is also another crucial factor with my play style. Because if I can get a ship to turn, that means it's now broadside to everything else. It doesn't need to be broadside to me. Those torps don't gotta land. They don't have to do anything other than make that boat turn 30 degrees, and then bam, there goes, their cruiser because Lennon just destroyed it. I don't like these boats this season as like the sit back and farm type thing. I think they have to be aggressive, but you have to know what you're doing. And they are very, very nuanced. And if you want to play this style, I highly recommend going into randoms and just kind of get a little vicious. Don't be afraid to die or anything like that. Just learn how much damage you can soak up and the effectiveness of running the reload booster. That's a thing that you're going to have to learn over time is when to pop that and when not to pop it. And knowing when to swap to AP on a French destroyer, very crucial. French destroyers are one of the few destroyers that things like Atagos, Mogamis, anything light cruiser, oh, that gives you broadside, pop your reload booster. Oh, so many citadels. It's lovely. It's a thing of beauty to watch. It'll get you just a adrenaline rush in every single time. They can be very, very destructive. And since this season, for the most part, everybody's running light cruisers, that can also be a big factor. Now, the Le Fantastique's guns aren't as good as the Kleber, so you don't get them as often, but AP damage is AP damage, and it's just something that you have to learn with that type of uh, boat. But the things you learn with the French destroyers also are real good with normal destroyers, because normal destroyers play like this anyways. The only difference is they have a smoke to cover their ass. You don't have that. You have speed, and quite frankly, that gimmick of not being hit is like 2 years old, and it's not a thing anymore for the most part. Boats
It can
like
still shed some
some,
fire.
there are
Yeah.
some people that still don't know it, but for the most part, at least up in the 33 level, we don't generally like. There are some times we'll be like, "Wow, this guy's really missing me. He must not. He must be kind of new or whatever." So on the lower side, that could be your best friend, honestly. Maybe in 30, 31, people aren't used to seeing French destroyers. They're going to miss quite a bit. It does take some use to zooming all the way out and aiming halfway across your screen in order to hit something that's flying across your screen and then disappears. It takes a little while to understand how to do that.
And there's
So,
gonna be some ships that just can't really manage it at all, like, American cruisers, they're slow
yeah,
shell velocity. Yeah,
nothing.
they're gonna really struggle to hit a French DD, no matter how the good they are. And so if you're seeing a lot of American cruisers on the enemy team, and you wanna maybe field some open water French DD action, that's not the worst idea, but you will struggle a little bit on effective damage because the damage output there, if that's all you're doing with them, is not exceptional. It doesn't kill anybody quickly.
Like I said, they soak up damage better than just about, or just better than any other destroyer in the game. That's their, it's like their hidden gimmick. A lot of people don't know about it. You'd be surprised. And they're like, well, I don't understand why you didn't take a whole bunch of damage. There'll be times where you'll be shooting a French destroyer and you're like, why am I not damaging this thing? Once the hull's completely saturated, you're pretty much almost invincible if you know what you're doing. Like, HE doesn't really super affect you, and AP angle, it doesn't eat damage like other destroyers. So the lower health you get in one of these, while I don't like losing health, you sort of become kind of more deadly to a point, but you just have to know what you're doing with it at that level. Like, it, I'm happy to teach anybody how to play these things because they are a pain to learn, and it's really hard now, especially. They were really easy to learn back in the day when they first came out. Now there's a lot that could counter them, but for this season, for like the lower tiers for 30 and 31, I think they would be a great addition to your lineup because I don't think you're going to see a lot of people that know how to effectively shoot them or counter them if you have somebody who's been taught how to play it properly. Amgen would also be another person who's really good with these.
Amgen's without a doubt our best French destroyer pilot.
Yes.
He's really, really good. So
Yeah,
if you ever get a chance to, pick his brain a little bit and maybe even play a couple of games with him in a French DD, take it. Take it. That's gold right there.
yeah. That the two I've played with him, uh, best French Destroyer player I played with, bar none. Like, he
Bar none.
outclasses me no problem.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very good player with those. So
And that's
while
just
I
'cause
know
he
what I'm
knows
doing,
these spots and
Yeah.
knows the timing on the spots, and so how he can get in and out of them, be effective, do damage, not take damage, expend your hit points real wisely. That all that amounts to a very high caliber of play. If you can manage anything approaching that, then you're even just getting the mentality down. That's a good step forward.
and like I said, anybody wants to learn, feel free to hit me up. I can give you as much knowledge as I got. Like I said, no professional at this, but it's my favorite destroyer type, and I have a lot of games in them, and it's one of the few ships that I actually still enjoy really playing in randoms. So if I'm having a bad time, I typically go load up one of these and just go have fun.
Yeah, for me, it's Hindenburg, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Um,
Mhm.
so we want to jump into a training room here and actually practice some of this here in a little bit. But um, any questions on French destroyers or kind of the concepts that we're talking about, or even DD play in general, specifics to utility and gunboat DDs?
Yeah, I
I
had a
do have
question.
one. After you, Freddie.
Oh, I just wanted to ask: is there a real difference between Van Quillen and Le Fantastique? I'm not sure.
So the difference between them is one of them has, I think, a second faster reload. I believe it's the Terrible. They're basically the same ship. One just has a faster reload, and I think one has slightly better speed by like
A knot.
a little. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're basically the same ship. So if
Aren't the
you're
ranges different too?
Torp speed's different.
is the torp speed different?
Head knot's different. Fantastic has faster torps.
Honestly, I think the Fantastic is the better option. So if you're like asking this question because you want to buy the Terrible, it's a good premium, but I would just go Tech Tree.
Oh no, I have the Van Quillen, but I'm not sure if I'm.
Yeah, I thought you said that. Van Quillen. That's a different DD entirely.
Oh yeah,
Tier
Van
7.
Quillen.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'm not actually familiar with
That's
too
the
much of the
tier
Van
7.
Quillen.
I think that's a tier 7.
Yeah,
Vauquelin,
one
yeah.
for the
That's the
Fantastic.
7. I'm on the tier 6. The good boys.
Okay.
So I can run it real quick. So the tier 6 and tier 7 play a lot different than the tier like 8 through 9 and 10. 9 and 10 are a completely different beast, but 8 kind of starts your difference. They're all the same play style, so if you're trying to learn, yes, you can still try to learn these tactics with the tier 5, 6, and 7. The Jaguar at tier 5 is actually like one of my favorite French destroyers. It's a hidden sleeper destroyer. I don't
It's
care what
good.
anybody says.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can learn how to do this stuff at lower tiers effectively. If you don't want to do it at tier 10, yeah, it's perfectly fine and you'll be able to learn. You just have to have your speed boost and your reload booster, and I think that's when you get it at tier 6. I did maybe tier 5. As long as you have those two, you're good to go.
I think you get it at tier 5, if I remember right. Or I think you get the speed boost at 5 and the reload booster at 6 or something like
It's been so long since I've
that.
grinded
It's
those
been a
lines.
while. Okay. Yeah, that's basically what we wanted to kind of go over today. To just talk a little bit about your options in French DDs and what utility destroyers contribute to that mix. So you can kind of work on your positioning a little bit and decide whether you want to run a French destroyer, and if you do, what he should be doing. Because we saw a lot of those French destroyers, and they just kind of run around open water, going dodge, dodge, dodge. You can't hit me, and they're gunning and they're not actually getting damage, not like effective big damage, which is really kind of what they're doing. And that means getting a little closer, and that's not usually dodge range. So it means some island positional play, and thinking a little bit about what's going to be a good island and what might not, where your escape routes are, things like these. So yeah, it was good though. Any more questions? I'm gonna go ahead and put a training room up now, and anybody interested in practicing some of this, go ahead and pop on in. It's up under Rigel now. But we can keep going over your questions while we form that up.
Yeah, I'll put out a question. So, um, I mean, it's general for DD play, I guess, but specifically for the French when it comes to speed juking. Are you timing your drop in speed or acceleration with the enemy firing at you? Like as soon as you see the shells hit, are you juking then, or like what's the timing on that typically?
So it used to be that you could kind of time it when they shoot. I don't recommend that anymore. What I do is I do an interval type thing. If I'm going at full speed, I will eventually you'll be able to do it like in your head to where you'll be like, okay, I've been going full speed for X amount of seconds. I'll drop it down to 1/4. Then I take it up to usually full speed. Then I drop it down to 1/3 and then back to full speed again. And the speed type juking type thing, you guys got to do constantly. Don't just do it when you're getting fired at because then you'll forget to do it and you'll just start going in a straight line, not doing it at all.
Okay,
It
so
kind of get
it
it in.
makes it harder for them to aim. Essentially.
Yeah, they've constantly got to the game's got to recalculate you, and it's not good at it. So if you just continuously do it in these type of intervals, whatever you feel comfortable with, that's what I just do. You don't have to do it like me. That's what I
so like
recommend.
safely, then you would say that you shouldn't be running at the same speed for more than 10-15 seconds. Should definitely be switching it up. Like,
If you're detected, yes.
If you're detected, yeah. Unless you're trying to get away, then if you're trying to get away and you need to break contact, go full speed and start rudder juking. But if you're just trying to be annoying with your shells to where you don't want to get hit so you can hit them back, just speed juke whatever way you feel comfortable. Just play with your throttle. And once you feel comfortable, find something that you like because it's different for everybody. Some people only run from 0 to 1/4 speed. And then I don't like that play style because I don't think it gives you enough time to move.
I
I'm not
agree.
as good. So it just depends what you're comfortable with. But it takes a lot of time to get good with that. Just know that. Like,
okay.
if you get smacked, just know I get smacked still. Like, there are people that know how to counter that play, and so don't get upset if you have a bad game to where you can't do it. It's gonna happen.
So
One tip I
part
see
two
a
to
lot
that.
for doing that.
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
For speed juking, one tip that I see a lot is when you're accelerating, you want your rudder neutral so you get the maximum amount of acceleration you can. And then when you're deaccelerating, you want to shift your rudder. So not only do you see that natural deacceleration and your ship slews sideways through the water and deaccelerates even faster, but you're changing to a new heading. And so it pulls your ship even further off of the aiming point that the enemy was expecting you to be at. So, rudder straight, and then you speed juke by cutting it down to 1/3 or 1/4 or something like that. And then rudder hard over.
And
And then,
another question, real
yeah, go
quick,
on.
on the propulsion mod for speed juking. Does that boost to the speed only help when you're starting from 0, like from a dead stop going forward, or if you're constantly, WS, is that prop mod kicking in to get you up to speed quicker?
Anytime the numbers are increasing.
Yes. Prop mod is your best friend. Do not use rudder shift. They don't need it. Also, the coal mod for speed boost, highly recommend. That is a must when playing these at any sort of decent level. So if you can afford that, highly recommend it.
Extending the
And
duration on that really
And
does help because
you
speed
said
it,
boost not
adjusted,
only
yes,
does
so
it boost your
coal mod.
top speed, but it also increases your acceleration to top speed.
And that's in the armory, right?
yep.
Yeah, you can actually see it under your equipment when you are selecting gear for your destroyer. If it has a speed boost, one of the slots will give you an option, and it'll just link right to the armory. Okay, so training room's getting nice and filled up here. What we want to do tonight is kind of mimic some of these destroyer engagements we're talking about. So we're going to be focusing on destroyers, but not solely on French destroyers. What we want here is a good mix between a couple of cruisers, mostly destroyers, some fast French boats, but also some utility boats, that can go out there and actually detect an enemy. Because if it's all French, you're gonna have a little bit of a problem with that. Something like an Orkan could be king of the field if you can stay alive. So let's get a good mix of destroyers that you want to practice in, and then probably like, I don't know, two let's say 2 cruisers per team. I think that that's pretty reasonable. And we're gonna be fighting over the Alpha and Charlie caps over here on Loop. So that's the east and the west. We're gonna ignore the center and just see if we can split evenly between those two caps and fight for dominance. Try to work with your team, maybe throw some of these plans in place. The only thing that I would ask for cruisers is that we pick something without radar. You can bring in a cruiser you want. Although, okay, let's let's be fair. Let's ban the Amalfi. No Amalfi. It's too blappy. But we can go out there and we can rock something.
Too blappy. Just shoot it in its rudder.
No, oh, you're on to me.
Does the
See.
Wichita have radar?
It does, and if you really want to bring it, that's not a problem. Just make sure you don't use the radar. I mean, there's still
Got it.
plenty of gunpowder on it, and that's pretty good. All right. So we got a good crew here. There's our cruiser action. Now let's get the DDs filled up. And if you want to join in the training room, it's up under Rigel. Right now we've got 7 people in. We can accommodate pretty much everybody. We're gonna run this at tier 8. So if you have a tier 8, and heck, if you even don't have a tier 8, and you have a tier 7 or something you want to play, not a problem. Pop into training room, get you set up.
And make sure you bring that tier 8 Hakiryu destroyer.
Yeah, I was planning on it.
I heard that. I was like, what? Today I learned my carrier is a destroyer.
I get those Japanese DD names mixed up all the time.
It's a Tone. What?
Oland.
I'm waiting for us to run a tone one night.
Oh, we were running Tony's a little bit in the early season. We just didn't find them very effective.
I feel like it'd be the same as on Otago, but you just have the planes once in a while.
Kind of. It doesn't have the same gunpowder as the Otago. You know, it's a little bit lacking in that respect. Okay, lightning. That's a good utility destroyer. Ooh, the Z-23. We do not see a lot of that, so let's do that over here. All right, let's rest of you guys. Ship on up.
I have both, so whichever one you need. I have the Fantaste and the Orkin, so.
You bring whatever you think will fill out a team.
A
Right
lot.
now,
It looks like we need another Frenchie.
It looks like we need another cruiser for Bravo.
Another cruiser?
Looks like French DD on Alpha could be used. Yeah, there we go. 2 cruisers on Bravo, 2 cruisers on Alpha, and Blade. Do you want to play or spectate?
Spectate.
All right, no problem. All right, so this looks pretty good. So this is going to be just 1 cruiser and 2 destroyers on each team going to each cap, Alpha and Charlie. Do we want to split comms? It really doesn't matter to me.
It would probably be simpler since we have multiples of the same. You call out what you're driving, you're going to get confused.
Yeah, you're probably right. Go ahead and create a battle room for Bravo team. That looks like it'll probably be battle room 4. Somebody pop down and create that for me, will you? All right, Bravo team, join Oyo in.
Let's go, Bravo.
Well, he said 2 DDs and the cruiser to A and 2 to C, right? Like an even split, isn't that what he said?
Yep.
All right.
I got the French DD, so I'll go for the island at A.
I'm only French DD, and this is my first time. Well, I'm not experienced, so I'll go to.
Battle starts.
As long as the lightning and the Orkin are split up, that should probably work out pretty well. That way you got somebody who can spot for the French DDs. Lone Shadow, you know where to go?
Roger that.
Where should I head to?
Area. So Orc and the Orkin will come into here. I can radar you kind of come over here and gun them from the side.
Roger.
As far as seaside, probably something a little bit similar. Lightning spot, back one, sit back a little bit and gun. Back one needs to set some pretty good angles. I would probably have the back one kind of hang out around in here while the lightning goes up in front of them. Back one, you want to get separation from the lightning. Use him to.
I'm spotted. I'm spotted. Yo, he's right there.
Enemy cruiser detected.
Fire two. Lightning trying to get into the island. You got Hydra, right?
Smoke generator started.
Mine's up.
Torpedoes, dead ahead.
Sorry.
Torpedoes to starboard.
Right, focus fire on that other DD. Ah, there's a Venture. Can you get in a position where you can get shots on the Venture over here today?
Gonna go right here. So I'm not gonna have shots on that.
Enemy destroyer detected.
Come out just on the north side of the island over there too.
You have the Fantasy Eagle shoot over.
Sorry, I didn't stick behind the island.
Aaron, what are you doing in the freaking cap?
Smoke generator
Orkin
started.
allowed to use radar?
I can, but I'm not going to waste it because not anybody on our side has a shot.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they said that radar isn't
port.
allowed.
Torched by lightning?
If they're saying
Torpedoes
radar's
to
not
port.
allowed, I would never have brought the Orkin in the first
They don't
place.
want cruisers using radar. You can use your radar working.
Yes.
That's it's the only reason why you'd actually bring an Orkin. All right. See how they came out and they got the angle on me now? That's what I wanted you to do over there.
Torps bottom of there.
Torpedoes, dead ahead.
The Steak should never stop moving.
So where should I go?
Up the one line, try to flank them.
Yeah,
All
right
right.
there. That's where I wanted you to go.
Critical engine damage.
Nice farm sliding.
Enemy cruiser destroyed. Problem solved, sir. Torpedoes to port.
$30 seconds to hydro for the lightning.
And here comes the mains. They got me now. Nothing I can do. It's a minute 30 for my cooldown on my radar, so I'm kind of useless. I'm just going to die.
RPF. Just switched. Orkin's up.
Our team has taken the lead.
Shadow, always keep going forward. Don't back up in that boat.
He's gonna be perma-spotted in my hydro. Turn in towards me. In towards me, get that rock in between you and him.
Still got Aveda's incoming fire.
Don't go any farther, he's probably got torque angles and probably has launched one set. Kill it. You got his broadside, or close to it.
Battle ends in 5 minutes.
What'd you do?
Don't mind me.
On that flank.
Good job. Good job. East side. That was a blowout. What happened there? I
Coral.
saw that Orkin got smacked down pretty
It
hard.
was Spain's fault. Decided to go into the cap, and the cruiser was not at all where I expected him to be, and that was my demise right there.
Yeah, when you, I mean, to some extent when you're playing Battleship, but absolutely when you're playing Cruiser, until you get good intelligence on where the enemy's at, you really you have the option of committing, right? You can just go right in there and take a gamble, but you're going to be right on that gamble. I don't know, probably less than 50% of the time, because there's a lot of different options for the enemy, and you can't always predict the right one.
Correct.
You know, my usual deployment is going to be pretty passive. A little further back. You want to support your destroyer, force up there so that you can help out with guns, but you don't want to get yourself caught somewhere where you can't get out. So watch escape routes. Don't close in too far, especially if you're not in a ship that can take it. Something like a hipper. It's great at those brawls. So playing a hipper pretty aggressively, yeah, that's pretty decent, right? But it's not the best for every situation.
Well, I mean, in this fight, light cruisers are a better option than heavy cruisers.
Well, I mean, heavy cruisers have the ability to just punch light cruisers. The what was it? The Prince Jurgen had a significant advantage over my mains just because he has a little bit more armor, and doesn't he get a heal? I think it's a heal, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just a significant advantage. I wasn't probably going to win that fight. We had to trade just a little bit better, and getting that French destroyer on the one line, that push when you got so close to the Akazuki and just destroyed him, that was brilliant. Oh, that was exactly what you're supposed to do in that type of situation with that boat, because there was
I
nothing
hung
to
out
stop
there
you.
too long. That's how you got. I should have moved out sooner.
And it happens fast. As soon as he commits to that, boom, he's right there. And there's not a lot that can be done to stop him. I mean, I think he was probably outside of Maine's hydro radius. So
Mine? No. Mine's 6.
I think he was outside of 6 at that point. I don't know. Maybe I
When he
could have
got
popped
pushed
hydro
out of the
earlier.
smoke, he was just coming out into the edge of my hydro, but he was already dead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there was probably some awareness that we could have had a little bit better on Alpha Team, just to say, what radius of support abilities do we have? And so that gives us the confidence to be able to sit and smoke. Of course, there's really no way that you can just measure on a map. Yes, I'm confidently within the hydro radius of my friends. How long can I stay this out? That's such a nuanced and complicated topic that we're not going to nail it, but it's something else to think about. Okay, you guys want to do it again? We got time for one more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
The thing I learned is the Orkin shouldn't be the one in first contact versus the other destroyer.
the Orkin should be the one in first contact, so long as you're initiating it and you radar while staying dark.
The islands were occluding some of my cruiser fire support.
That's a perfectly legitimate perspective. So you probably want to coordinate with your team and wait until you've got that good fire support. Make sure that a DD can't sneak an island and get close to you without you knowing about it, and stay open water, and then initiate contact when you can. Like, it's very much a trap you're laying when you play.
Yeah, well, I came in on two enemy destroyers, so it was kind of...
That'll happen, but you had 2 destroyers. You just got to make sure that it's a fight that lands in your favor, because you're working with your team, a little bit better. That's usually the clinch point. We good to go?
Yep.
Good.
Ready.
Okay, so Bravo, you did the move last time. Let's go and take Alpha down to battle room 4. I'll create one.
I found out I was talking that whole battle and had my mic muted. Sorry.
Yes, you did. Is somebody supposed to be calling for our side?
I don't think so. I think it's just kind of.
Why is nobody
can if you
listening to
want.
me?
I listened to you.
No, I was talking about the guy that was muted.
Oh. Well, I only responded to when I was asked what was I doing going in cap. I said killing DDs.
Realistically, we wouldn't be having the cruiser brawls that we're having.
Well, yes. Although I did have a way to turn out I was in a position where I was ready to turn out if I had to.
Battle starts.
All right, Lightning, you gonna head to sea?
Affirmative.
French DD doing the same.
Yeah, not sure that it's the best, but they're probably going to predict it, given that we spawn in this exact same form as last time.
We can do the island.
Just let the Lightning separate from you. He's got the better detection, I assume, right? So let him get in front of you so he can detect stuff before they detect you.
Yeah, so Freddie
And
Mercury.
take totally different lines because you're setting yourself up to make easy torps.
You want to be like 2 kilometers behind me, and then for this type of situation, you could have reserved your speed boost until the action started.
Got it.
Like
that's when you really want it.
Because he's so slow. All right, so Lone, same thing like you did before, but be ready to come around that island real fast and kill them when I radar him.
Roger.
Oyoda, where are you gonna set up?
I'm open water cruiser, so I usually float around over here.
RPF?
Okay.
Should I stay behind this island, or?
No, come on this side of the island. Now you want to.
Okay.
Now you want to speed up. Mines is up.
They switched cruisers, different sides.
I'm detected.
You're right on top of the other DD again, aren't you?
Tested it all.
Nope, not contested it at all.
Take a peek.
Not detected either.
Torpedoes to starboard.
All right, I'm gonna poke my nose out here and see what I can see. Ah, there's their Orkin.
Torpedoes, direct front.
Just run back to me.
Yeah, I'm on my way.
Wait, do I continue tailing you?
Actually, you two can kill him. The other two are back behind you.
Critical engine damage.
All right, guys, light them up if you can. All right, ready for radar?
10 seconds.
I'm being radared.
They're radaring me right now.
All right.
The ship is on fire.
Radar when ready.
Here comes radar. Oh yeah, they're wrapping around. All right, La Fantastique, come on south of the island and start shooting as they come around.
Hey,
Oh, looks like they're coming back.
I'm capping. Oh no, wait, lightning.
Watch
What
the
did you
side.
do?
Watch the line.
All right, La Fantastique, turn out right because they got that cruiser is going to spot you and shoot you.
We don't have radar now, so keep that in mind.
All right, here, yep, there, La Fantastique is up.
Gonna beach. Blast him. Going forward again.
Veckel, and he has a Hydra.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now I do run away.
I shot out the La Fantastique's engine.
Lost him. Albemarle's coming.
Radar's on.
Fantastique, if you have shots, I'll deal with the Albemarle.
Well, Albemarle's coming through.
Somebody able to get torpedo angles on him.
Orkin only has one rack of 4, not the best torpedo boat.
Fortunately, he's running IFHE, and he just goes through my armor. Thank you. Fantastique's up.
Battle ends in 5 minutes.
Torbit, please, please, for the love of God. Thank you.
Nice.
You want to split the rock? I'll go right.
I'm already committed to left.
You're within my Hydra range, so I'll spot torpedoes.
He thought you were going to go the other way.
Spotted. He's in front of me.
That's not fair that they cut through B to get to you guys. There's smoke just south of the B cap.
I have 1 radar left. And no more heals.
Me neither.
Main's up.
He said go back to port.
Albemarle was definitely a better trader with Huygen.
Yeah, the Albemarle was doing a number, and it can counter DDs really well too. It's a great boat. It just it doesn't maneuver incredibly well. The Germans can kind of dance a little bit. The British, they're a little sluggish, especially stopping. They don't like to stop. Anyway, really good job. I was telling Bravo team a little bit that if you lose a flank in a skirmish like this, especially if it's in a clan battle or something, um, it's not a problem if you lost the battle there. It's a problem if you didn't kill any of the enemies. That's where you know that something went really wrong. If you look over and they're all still alive, something's not clicking, and as you're working, especially in clan battles, since it's clan battle season now, if you're working and you're seeing that situation happen, that's a sign that something needs to change. You change your tactics, or you change the people you have in which boats, or maybe even you sub somebody out for the night if they're just barely can keep their eyes open or something, because something like that's going on. Somebody's not firing on all cylinders. So watch for those types of moments, and when you're doing your debriefs, talk about how they developed, and that'll lead you to what might need a tweak. So like Squirrel on that flank, when you're over there, enemy team, they out DPM'd you. What led to that? What were the steps that brought us to that conclusion?
The Orkin was played too far up and got pinched between the other Orkin and the Eugen.
That's common. And it's something to look for if you have freedom of movement with your cruiser, using it aggressively, but not in such a way that it would get torped or focused out, So you look for those gaps in positional coverage. And then, see if you can push up and start taking angles. Like on the east flank, I did that in the mines. Just push right down with the Harugamo. So we had this massive base of fire. And if anything was in that vicinity, it gets lit up by hydro, and we just peck on it until it's done. It's very difficult to counter something like that, unless you maybe get a whole lot of torps on that smoke. But I don't think you're going to get that. So, it's something like that that can be super effective. And you're going to see that mostly by doing debriefs.
Well,
Orkin, what else? Squirrel. Orkin was one thing. What else did we have over there? What was going on? Was it just the Orkin?
Well, I had plenty of chances to hit ships, but I couldn't put them down. So that's always a factor in almost every battle. I had targets most of the time. At the end, I knew the La Fantastique was on the other side of the island. I didn't know where or when he was going to come out, so that was a constant threat. And I had totally lost bearing on their Orkin. I was clueless. I looked at the mini map. I kind of figured out where he was, but I never really saw him again. And when I finally came out from my hidey hole, he was at almost full health. We were down a DD, and I had 2 other ships to shoot at, and it was already. I could smell the squirrel roasting on the spit.
This happens.
Prolonged, you would have won that.
Yeah. So all things being equal, I think that the Albemarle over there was. Oh wait, no, it was Albemarle, right?
Albemarle.
Yeah. Seemed like he was trading above his weight class. I mean, that was really well done. That ship was dealing a lot of damage to the enemies. I think it was a little bit more just coordinating with the fleet you got. So if like that was a clan battle and we're doing a debrief after, I'd probably say, okay, Orkin, don't get so close. Let's drop the next one. And that's about it. Because these situations are so nuanced. The next get is not going to be the same thing.
Correct.
You can let people develop into these roles. And traditionally, good destroyer pilots take a while to get to the point where they can confidently execute tasks like this. And a little bit.
I'm going to point out that the Orkin on the other team was on the cap with cruiser backup, and I was told I had cruiser backup going in, but I didn't apparently have much cruiser backup.
It's all about angles.
The difference was that
I had to get into radar range. Yes, I was trying to get up on the island into radar range.
Well, he was on the back side of the island. You were on the side of the island, which opened you up to the Eugen's guns.
Yes, it was a timing issue more than anything else.
Yeah, if you're going to open yourself up to like Eugen guns, or anything, if you're playing that central island position,
right? But I'm saying is their Eugen was on the cap. My cruiser wasn't on the cap. I should have throttled back and waited. Is what I'm saying.
He also ate a random torpedo.
Because apparently they were assaulting the cap and we were not. I did not know we were going to play the let's stand back game and lob torpedoes through. Instead,
that's a good lesson.
I thought I was supposed to be in there with my radar, which is 7.5 kilometers, which means I got to be up in it.
So essentially, if it was communicated and coordinated, that probably could have been.
I thought it was. I said, "Hey, are we going in? Are you guys ready?" I specifically said that, and I was told yes. And
yes.
I went in. Now, apparently, I was a little bit too far over, and it was line of sight with the cruiser, which was bad. So but no fire was heading in on that cruiser either. So I apparently didn't have an angel on my shoulder.
It was west side.
West side.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So there are 2 possibilities here, and probably both are true. When you're approaching a cap, and you get up there and you're like, I died on cap. I had to get up there, and I went up there and I died. It is frustrating. I know the feeling. One option is that, your supporting cruiser was too far back and probably could have been playing more aggressively. Maybe. I don't know.
I didn't enter the cap until after it had been captured. I asked if we were contesting it. So I thought I had given it enough time since they had already captured it.
Yeah. The other option, and this is also probably true, is if you're going up there in that cap, you've got the choice of capturing it from the outside or getting up next to that island. And, getting a radar involved a lot of times means getting up next to the island. And it's a relatively safe play. It's a good play. It's a common play, Orkin does very well there. But if you're exposed to any sort of incoming fire, then that should be a signal to you that your position along that island might need to be adjusted. If you're in a position where there's no safe spot to adjust to, then you should think that, oh, wait, no, I should never have been here to begin with. They've got angles on this island. What am I doing? And so you got to kind of balance all those factors. And if you went up to the island and died, in the end, you play your boat, right? It's on you to play that boat to the best you can. So the thing that probably makes sense to me most is kind of what we said early on is, well, hey, If you're going to go up there and die, don't do that. Try something else.
So something else I'd like to make a comment about. The reason they got to the cap and could be aggressive is because of our start. We were going left, we were going right, we wasted a lot of time, we couldn't be at full speed, and that helped create what we found when we got there.
Well, enemy can get advanced deployment on a cap. That happens.
I largely went on the approach to that cap. I went undetected.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily matter who's in initial control of the cap, because as you can see, you kind of both teams, they kind of move in, they move out, they reposition, they try different things. It's not necessarily like who has that first has the advantage. It just changes how you approach it. And I think Western Cap, both sides played very well there. It was just if you're finding yourself a ship that gets murdered, then that's going to be something that you want to adjust the next game for, to say, okay, well, how do we prevent that from happening? Maybe we need the Edinburgh to come up and just go boom right for the island. Maybe. I mean, not too, because Edinburgh was trading very well in the open water in that type of play style. And so maybe just not sending the Orc in there, that's another good option. Or maybe you send the Fantastique there, and you put the Orc in somewhere else. Another good option. You examine these things and you just kind of keep going through options and trying different things, and you expand your comfort with these types of tactics. So next time you're in that situation, whatever decision you're going to make, it's just going to be that one step a little bit better. And it's going to be including a few more factors as you make the decision. That's like, Amgen, if he's coming in and playing a French destroyer or an Orkan or whatever, he comes in and he plays and he's considering 15, 20 different factors all at the same time as far as what makes him go in a specific position and do the specific thing he's trying to do. And I don't have instincts like that. I don't think anybody has instincts like that. But we can keep adding to our little bag of tricks by saying, oh, okay, let me think about this next time. And maybe you will, maybe you won't. But you can at least put it in your head, and that'll help up your game. Any other questions? Because I'd kind of like to move on to battle caller training.
No, thanks.
Okay, it was good for me. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so moving on, we are going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that really help out. Let's see, where's this? They really help out battle callers